Tonight's story is East of the Sun and West of the Moon from a collection of Nordic tales. Are you in bed? You better be in bed. Once upon a time, there was a poor father. He had so many children that he hadn't much either food or clothing to give them. Pretty children they all were, but the prettiest was the youngest daughter, who was so lovely there was no end to her loveliness. One day, it was on a Thursday evening, late at the fall of the year. The weather was so wild and rough outside, and it was so cruelly dark, and the rain fell and the wind blew until the walls of the cottage shook. There they all sat around the fire, busy with this thing and that. But just then, all at once, something gave 3 taps on the window. The father went out to see what the matter, and when he got outside, what should he see but the great big white bear. "Good evening to you," said the bear. "The same to you," said the man. "Will you give me your youngest daughter? If you will, I'll make you as rich as you are now poor," said the bear. Well, the man would not be at all sorry to be rich, but still he thought he might have a bit of a talk with his daughter first. So he went in and told them how there was a great white bear waiting outside, who had given his word to make them so rich if he could only have the youngest daughter. The girl said no. Nothing would get her to say anything else. So the men went outside and settled it with the bear that he should come again next Thursday evening and get a final answer. Meanwhile, he talked with his daughter over and over. He kept on telling her all the riches they could get and how well off she would be herself. And so at last she thought better of it, washed and mended her only clothes, and made herself as smart as she could. I can't say that her packing took too long. Next Thursday evening came the white bear to fetch her, and she got upon his back with her bundle, and off they went. When they had gone a bit of a way, the white bear said, "Are you afraid?" No, she said, she wasn't. "Well, mind and hold tight my coat, and there's nothing to fear," he said. So she rode a long, long way, till they came to a great steep hill. There on the face of it, the white bear gave a knock, and a door opened, and they came into a castle where there were many rooms all lit up, rooms gleaming with silver and gold. And there too was a table ready laid, and it was all grand as grand could be. Then the white bear gave her a silver bell, and when she wanted anything, she was only to ring it, and she would get it all at once. Well, after she had eaten and drunk, and the evening wore on, she got all sleepy after her journey, and thought she would like to go to bed. So she rang the bell, and she had scarcely taken hold of it before she came into a chamber where there was a big bed made, as white, as fair as anyone would wish to sleep in, with silken pillows and curtains with gold fringe. All that was in the room was gold or silver. But when she had gone to bed and put out the light, a man came and laid alongside her. That was the white bear, who threw off his beastly shape at night, but she never saw him, for he always came after she had put out the light and before the day has dawned. So things went on happily for a while, but at last she began to get silent and sorrowful, for there she went about all day long, all on her own, and she longed to go home and see her father and mother and brothers and sisters. So one day when the white bear asked what it was she lacked, she said it was so dull and lonely there, and how she longed to go home and see her father and mother and brothers and sisters. And that was why she was so sad and sorrowful, because she couldn't get to them. "Well, well," said the bear, "perhaps there is a cure for all this, but you must promise me one thing, not to talk alone with your mother, but only when the rest are by to hear, for she will take you by the hand and try to lead you into a room alone to talk. But you must mind and not do that, else you bring bad luck on us both." So one day the white bear came in and said, now they could set off and see her father and mother. Well, off they went, she sitting on his back, and they went far and long. At last they came to a grand house, and there her brothers and sister were running about out of doors at play. Everything was so pretty it was a joy to see. "This is where your father and mother live now," said the white bear, "but don't forget what I told you, else you'll make us both unlucky." "No," she said, "she won't forget." And when she had reached the house, the white bear turned right about and left her. Then, when she went in to see her father and mother, there was so much joy. There was no end to it. None of them thought they could thank her enough for all she has done for them. Now they had everything they wished for, as good could be, and they all wanted to know how she got on and where she lived. "Well," she said, "it was a very good place to live where she did. She had all that she wished for." What else she said beside that, I don't know, but I don't think any of them had the right end of the stick. But in the afternoon, after they had done some dinner, all happened as the white bear has said. Her mother wanted to talk with her alone in her bedroom, but she minded what the white bear had said and wouldn't go upstairs. What we have to talk about will keep," she said, and put her mother off. But somehow or other, her mother got round to her at last, and she had to tell her the whole story. So she said how every night when she had gone to bed, a man came and lay down beside her as soon as she had put out the light, and how she never saw him, because he was always up and away before the morning dawned. And how she went on about there alone and sorrowing, for she thought she would so like to see him, and how all day she talked alone there alone, and how dull and dreary it was, and very lonesome. "My," said the mother, "it may well be a troll that's sleeping next to you. I'll teach you a lesson how to set eyes on him. I'll give you a little bit of candle, which you can carry home in your pocket. Just light that while he is asleep, but take care not to drop the wax on him." "Yes, that's a great idea." So the girl took the candle and hid it in her pocket, and as night drew on, the white bear came and fetched her away. But when they had gone a little bit of the way, the white bear asked if all had happened as he had said. Well, she couldn't say it didn't. "Now mind," he said, "if you have listened to your mother's advice, you have brought bad luck on us both, and then all that has passed between us will be nothing." No, she said, she hadn't listened to her mother's advice. So when she reached home and had gone to bed, it was the old story over again. There came a man and lay down beside her, but at dead of the night, when she heard he slept, she got up and struck a light, lit the candle, and let the light shine on him. And so she saw that he was the loveliest prince one ever set eyes on, and she fell so deeply in love with him on the spot that she thought she could never live if she didn't give him a kiss there and then. And so she did. But as she kissed him, she dropped 3 hot drops of wax on his shirt, and he woke up. "What have you done?" he cried. "Now you have made us both unlucky, for had you held out only this year, I had been freed, for I have a stepmother who had bewitched me, so that I am a white bear by day and a man by night. But now all ties are snapped between us. Now I must set off from here to her. She lives in a castle which stands east of the sun and west of the moon, and there too is a princess with a nose 3 inches long, and she is the wife I now must have." The girl wept and wept, but there was no help to it. Go he must. Then she asked if she can go with him. No, she mustn't. Tell me the way then, she said, and I'll search out for it. Surely I may do that. Yes, you may do that, he said, but there is no way to that place. It lay east of the sun and west of the moon, and either way, you'll never find the way. So the next morning when she woke up, both prince and castle were gone, and there she lay on a little patch of green, in the midst of a gloomy thick wood, and by her side lay the same bundle of old clothes she had brought with her from her old home. After the girl got up, she rubbed the sleep out of her eyes, and she wept until she was exhausted. She decided to set out on her way, and she walked many, many days, until she came to a lofty crag. Under it sat an old woman, who played with a gold apple which she tossed about. The girl asked her if she knew the way to the prince, who lived with his stepmother in the castle that lay east of the sun and west of the moon, and who was to marry the princess with a nose 3 inches long. "How did you come to know about him?" asked the old woman. "But maybe you are the girl who ought to have had him." Yes, she was. So, it's you, isn't it?" said the old woman. "Well, all I know about him is that he lives in a castle that lies east of the sun and west of the moon. Either you'll come, late or never, but still you may have the loan of my horse, and on him you can ride to my next neighbor. Maybe she'll be able to tell you. And when you get there, just give the horse a switch under the left ear and beg him to be off home. And this gold apple you may take with you." So she got upon the horse and rode a long, long time, till she came to another crag, under which sat another old woman, with a gold carding comb. The girl asked her if she knew the way to the castle that lay east of the sun and west of the moon. And she answered, just like the old woman, that she knew nothing about it, except it was east of the sun and west of the moon. "And either you'll come never or late, but you shall have the loan of my horse to my next neighbor. Maybe she will be able to tell you all about it. And when you get there, just switch the horse under the left ear and beg him to be off home." And this old woman gave her the golden carding comb. "It might be something that you will find useful later," she said. So the girl got up on the horse and rode far, far away in a very weary time. And so at last she came to another great crag, under which sat another old woman, spinning with her gold spinning wheel. Her too she asked if she knew the way to the prince, and where the castle was that lay east of the sun and west of the moon. So it was the same thing all over again. "Maybe it's you who ought to have had the prince," said the woman. Yes, it was. But she too didn't know the way any more than the other two. East of the sun and west of the moon it was, she knew, and that was all. "And either you'll come late or never, but I'll lend you my horse, and then I think you best ride to the east wind and ask him. Maybe he knows those parts and can blow you either. But when you get to him, you need only to give the horse a switch under the left ear, and he'll trot home himself." And so too she gave her the gold spinning wheel. "Maybe you'll find use to it," said the old woman. Then off she rode for many, many days, a very, very weary time, before she got to the east wind's house. But at last she did reach it, and then she asked the east wind if he could tell her the way to the prince who dwelt east of the sun and west of the moon. Yes, the east wind has often heard tell of it, the prince and the castle, but he couldn't tell the way, for he had never blown so far. "But if you will, I'll go with you to my brother the west wind. Maybe he knows, for he's much stronger." So if you will just get on my back, I will carry you there." Yes, she got on his back, and I should just think they went briskly along. So when they got there, they went into the West Wind's house, and the East Wind said that the girl he had brought was the one who ought to have had the prince who lived in the castle, east of the sun and west of the moon. And so she had set out to seek him, and now he had come with her, and would be good to know if the West Wind knew how to get to the castle. "Nay," said the West Wind, "so far I've never been blown so far. But if you will, I'll go with you to our brother the South Wind, for he's much stronger than either of us, and he has flapped his wings far and wide. Maybe he'll tell you. You can get on my back, and I'll carry you to him." Yes, she got on his back, and so they travelled to the South Wind, and weren't so very long on the way, I should think. When they got there, the West Wind asked him if he could tell her the way to the castle that lay east of the sun and west of the moon, for it was she who ought to have had the prince who lived there. "You don't say so! That's her!" he said. "Well, I've blasted about in most places in my time, but so far I have never blown as far. But if you will, I'll take you to my brother, the North Wind. He is the oldest and strongest of the whole of us, and if he doesn't know where it is, you'll never find anyone in the world to tell you. You can get on my back, and I'll carry you there." Yes, she got on his back, and away they went from his house at a fine rate. And at this time, she wasn't long on the way. So when they got to the North Wind's house, he was so big and wild and cross, cold puffs came from him a long way off. "Blast you both! What do you want?" he roared out, ever so far off, so it struck them with icy shiver. "Well," said the South Wind, "you needn't be so foul-mouthed, for here I am, your brother the South Wind, and here is the girl who ought to have had the prince, who dwell in the castle that is east of the sun and west of the moon, and now she wants to ask you if you ever been there, and can tell her the way, for she would like to go and find him again." "Yes, I know well enough where it is," said the North Wind. "Once in my life I blew an aspen leaf there, but I was so tired I couldn't blow a puff for ever so many days after. But if you really wish me to go there, and you aren't afraid to come along with me, I'll take you on my back and see if I can blow you there." Yes, with all her heart, she must and would go up there if it were possible in any way. And as for fear, however madly she went, she wouldn't be at all afraid. "Very well then," said the North Wind, "but you must sleep here tonight, for we must have the whole day before us, if we will get there at all." Early next morning, the North Wind woke her, and puffed himself up, and blew himself out, and made himself so stout and big it was gruesome to look at him. And so off they went high and up through the air, as if they would never stop until they got to the world's end. Down here below there was such a storm. It threw down long tracts of wood and many houses, and when it stepped over the great sea, ships floundered in hundreds. So they tore on and on. No one can believe how far they went. And all the while they still went over the sea, and the North Wind got more and more weary, and so out of breath he could scarcely bring a puff, and his wings drooped and drooped, until at last he sunk so low that the crest of the waves dashed over his heels. "Are you afraid?" said the North Wind. No, she wasn't. But they weren't very far from land, and the North Wind had still so much strength left in him that he managed to throw her up on the shore under the windows of the castle, which lay east of the sun and west of the moon. But then he was so weak and worn out, he had to stay there and rest many days before he could get home again. The next morning the girl sat down under the castle window. And began to play with a gold apple. And the first person she saw was the long-nosed princess, who was to have the prince. "What do you want for your gold apple?" said the long-nosed princess, and threw open the window. "It's not for sale for gold or money," said the lassie. "If it's not for sale for gold or money, why is it that you want to sell it for? You may name your own price," said the princess. "Well, if I may get to see the prince, who lives here, and be with him tonight, you shall have it," said the girl whom the north wind has brought in. Yes, she might. That could be done. So the princess got the gold apple. But when the girl came up to see the prince, he was fast asleep. She called him and shook him, and she wept very, very badly. But all she can do, she couldn't wake him up. Next morning, as soon as the day broke, came the princess with a long nose and drove her out again. So in the daytime, she sat down under the castle windows and began to card with her carding comb. And the same thing happened. The princess asked what she wanted for it, and she said it wasn't for sale for gold or money, but if she might get to see the prince and be with him that night, the princess could have it. But when she went up, she found him fast asleep again, and for all she called, and for all she shook him and wept and prayed, she couldn't get him to wake up. And as soon as the grey light of day came, then came the princess with the long nose and chased her out again. So in the daytime, the girl sat down outside the castle window and began to spin with her golden spinning wheel, and that too the princess with the long nose wanted to have. So she threw open the window and asked what she wanted for it. The girl said, as she said twice before, it wasn't for sale for gold or money, but if she might go and see the prince who was there and be with him alone that night, she might have it. Yes, she might do that and welcome. But now you must know there were some people who had been carried off there by the storm the north wind has created. And as they sat in their room, which was next to the prince, they have heard how a woman had been in there and wept and prayed, and called to him 2 nights running, and they told the prince all about it. That evening, when the princess came with her sleepy drink, the prince made as if he drank it, but threw it over his shoulder, for he could guess it was a sleepy drink. So when the girl came in, she found the priest wide awake, and then she told him the whole story, how she had come here. "Ah," said the prince, "you've just come at the very nick of time, for tomorrow is to be our wedding day. But now I won't have the long-nosed princess, and you are the only woman in the world who can set me free. I'll say I want to see what my wife is fit for, and beg her to wash the shirt which has the 3 spots of wax on it. She'll say yes, for she doesn't know it is you who put them there. But that's a work only for people, and not so much for a pack of trolls. So I will say I won't have any other for my bride other than the woman who can wash them out, and ask you to try and do it." So there was a great joy. But the next day, when the wedding was to be, the prince said, "First of all, I'd like to see what my bride is capable of." "Yes," said the stepmother with all her heart. "Well," said the prince, "I've got a fine shirt, which I'd like for my wedding shirt, but somehow or other it has 3 spots of wax on, which I must have washed out. And I've sworn never to take any other bride than a woman who's able to do that. If she can't, she's not worth having." Well, that was not great thing, they said, so they agreed, and she with the long nose began to wash away as hard as she could, but the more she rubbed and scrubbed, the bigger the spots grew. "Aha," said the mother, "you can't wash, let me try." But she hadn't long taken the shirt in hand before it got far worse than ever, and with her rubbing and wringing and scrubbing, the spot grew bigger and blacker, and the darker and the ugliest was the shirt. Then all the other trolls began to wash, but the longer it lasted, the blacker and uglier the shirt grew, till at last it was as black all over as if it had been up the chimney. "Ah," said the prince, "you're none of them worth a straw. You can't wash. Why, there outside sits a beggar girl. I bet she knows how to wash better than the whole of you. Come in, girl," he shouted. Well, in she came. "I don't know," she said, "but I think I can." And almost before she had taken it and dipped it in the water, it was as white as driven snow, and even whiter still. At that, the old woman flew into such a rage. She burst on the spot, and the princess with the long nose after her, and the whole pack of trolls after her. At least, I've never heard a word about them since. As for the princess and the girl, they set free all the poor people who had been carried off and shut up in there, and they took with them all the silver and gold, and fitted away as far as they could from the castle that lay east of the sun and west of the moon. Good night, my lovely.